Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Dawson County Board of Commissioners work session. Today is August the 5th, 2021. Appreciate those of you that are in attendance as well as those who are online with us as well. Today, we're going to start out with a public hearing. The 2021 millage rate and property tax. This is the first of one hearing, but I'm going to go over a little bit of information for you before we get into that public hearing. Thing to work in here. Oops, that didn't work. I cut the whole thing off. Here we go. Now we're back. All right, millage rate history. Property taxes provide funding for county provided service to include public safety, public works, public health, park and rec, and judicial. The tax revenue is accounted for in our general fund. This year, the county is looking at doing a full rollback to the property owners for the 2021 tax levy. This will be the third straight year that the board has lowered the millage rate from the prior year. Where does your property tax dollar go? Well, the Board of Education, their millage rate is 15 mills, or going to be 15 mills when they vote on August the 10th of this month. And the Board of Commissioners is looking to roll it back to 7.625 for a total millage of 22.625. And you can see the breakdown in the pie. There's 66% of it goes to the Board of Education, 34% to the county. What does that mean? If you have a $250,000 home, taxable value is $100,000. Schools 15 mills, as you see at the top, county 7.65 for that total 22.625. School would get $1,500. The county would get $762.50 for a total tax bill of $2262.50. And that'll vary based on what kind of exemptions that you may have as a property owner. All right, so the proposed millage rate that I'm going to propose to the Board of Commissioners is rolling the millage rate back to 7.625, down from the 2020 millage rate of 7.885. This millage rate will provide a tax levy of approximately $12,999,505 in property tax to be used in the general fund for the different services that are provided by the county. And so at this time, I'll answer any questions that the board might have in reference to this proposed millage rate.
Mr. Chairman, what's the difference? Vicki, we have numbers of difference if it stayed the same versus the rollback?
And list on
What's that, 200?
a little over $200,000.
200,000?
Yeah. Yeah, a little over 200,000. It was a little over 13 million, 200 something thousand, I believe it was, or something like that with, if we hadn't rolled it back. Yes.
I think something
Now
just,
we still got, with the new construction and new additions, there was still an additional $400,000 into coming in based on the fact that we had new commercial, new residential that hadn't been on the tax digest before. So the rollback would be in reference to any increases or changes that might have been seen by people that were currently on the road.
And have we done the commercial reassess? I know that was in
2 years
2
ago, that was
years.
redone last year.
last year. Is that where we hired the outside?
The first time we hired the outside,
Yes.
and we had some consultants come in last year.
Finishing up, yeah.
And I think just point a note that we discussed a couple of weeks ago that was derived from that Georgia Tech study that showed our ability to be able to do this and keep property tax down is driven a lot by sales tax revenue that is generated predominantly there at the 400 corridor. So as those businesses have stayed strong and sales have been good, even through the downturn, we've been able to manage our manage to keep the millage rate down. So I think that's a good thing.
Other questions or comments before I open up the hearing? Okay. So at this time, I'll open up the hearing on the public hearing on the 2021 millage rate and property tax. Anyone here to speak on the 2021 millage rate and property tax? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close that hearing. The board will have an opportunity to vote for that millage rate in the voting session at 6 o'clock if you so desire. All right, we'll move on to the new business of the work session. First up, we have presentation of requests for Sheriff's Office staffing, recruitment, and retention funding. Sheriff Jeff Johnson. Sheriff.
That better?
Well, that's.
You got it? Okay, good. Currently, from an email that I have, and I don't have an updated email, but we currently have 7 openings in our detention center. We have 1 letter of resignation that we received yesterday. Citing some pay issues as well as some demands of the job, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. Currently, I have 5 certified positions opening. I do have 1 certified officer that's leaving. We're going to go teach at a academy. And then I also have 1 that's looking at UNG, primarily money. So currently we have 8, or we'll have 8 in detention and 7 in the jail. For our size agency, that's getting pretty critical. As we know that I'm presenting to you today to ask and request additional pay for our officers in hopes of better recruiting and better retention. I want to share with you just some things, and this is not new to Dawson County. This is new across the board. The Balanced Careers States pay is, not surprisingly, a huge motivator in officer attrition. Public safety and justice, hiring police officers is much harder than it used to be. To stay competitive, some are offering generous pay increases and bonuses. Police One cites whether the difficulties of hiring processes, pay, risk, or generational issues confront agencies across America. One thing is clear: law enforcement must adapt and evolve. And that's where I'm at today, to ask you for your help in getting our pay more competitive. But before we get into the details of the pay, I also want to let you know a little bit about the job. And I know that you're not far into this, and I know that we're having a harder time. When I first went through and got in law enforcement nearly 30 years ago, I went to the Georgia Mountain Center, and back when it was the Georgia Mountain Center, and I tested with over 300 applicants just for a handful of positions in Hall County and Gainesville. I know times have changed, and we're hard pressed to get 2 or 3 applications a week. And I know I shared that with a couple of you, some of them not being critical, but they're pretty sad applications. And the days of making sure all the T's were crossed and I's dotted, no blanks were left behind, things of that nature. Unfortunately, that's where we're at right now. So we're getting very, very hard pressed to even fill, obviously to fill the positions that we do have. The demands of the job, not just to pay, but we also know the demands, the hours that law enforcement works, shifts, on call. On call was cited by one of our recent ones that were resigning. Unfortunately, we have to operate in that capacity, which means if an officer goes home, he or she may not be subject to recall to come back in. They may have to fill in for a sick fellow officer. They may have to come in for, y'all all remember the civil unrest that we had last summer. There was times that although we didn't have any direct threats toward Dawson County, we had some indirect threats and we called them in. There's a lot of sacrifices, holidays, birthdays, family events, serving during the pandemic. You know, our law enforcement operations were still up and running. There's no working from home there. Obviously, our current state of law enforcement climate is not conducive to getting people in. I said it before, thankfully, Dawson County is different. We enjoy great public support here in Dawson County. But if you look at it from a whole, if you look from the national picture and you look from some of the media sites, especially the media sites, law enforcement's not portrayed favorably nowadays. And I think it's hurting overall those that are wanting to get into it. And it's sad to say, but I can understand. I can understand why you don't want to get into it, to potentially be prosecuted, to get put in positions that you are as well as for the wages. Another interesting thing that we're faced with at Dawson County is disqualifying criminal behaviors, histories. Obviously, we've had to reduce our standards like most other places have. Used to be if you smoked marijuana, you didn't qualify to become a police officer. Then it went to 10 years, then it went to 5 years. I think even the most recent Atlanta police, if you promise not to do it again, they'll consider you. And that is, it is funny, it's comical, but it's true.
It's not good.
That's a bad place to be in, but obviously our society has changed, so we have to look at things like that. So obviously we have a lot of challenges. How does that affect our community? Obviously, we're unable to adequately and capably recruit experienced personnel. That hurts us. What we do get, sometimes they may or may not work out. Oftentimes they wash out during the training process, during the background process, and that's all very time consuming for us. We're having to spend a lot of time and money, and we're also having to rededicate our efforts to going through these, even from a training perspective. So there's a lot of issues there that come with it. Y'all do know, and I agree with the chairman, when we recently had our retirements, that was a good time. That was an enjoyable experience and something that I want to see more of from Dawson County. We like people to come in and retire from Dawson County. And we've had this discussion too. We have more success bringing them in through the jail, getting them certified, getting them on patrol, and those dudes tend to stay with us a little bit longer. Let's definitely want to continue that trend and trying to get folks to stay here at Dawson County to retire, because that's ultimately what we want. I think it just results in a better service to our community. Obviously, we're investing in our people. This one of ours that's leaving us is he's a K-9 handler. He's a instructor. There's a lot of certifications that's walking out the door to Dawson County when he leaves. And we hate that, but we understand it. We try to do what we can to try to keep them here. But this is a portion of it. That's the reason that I come to you today. So now to get down to the meat of the matter, what I'm asking the board to consider is a $3 across, not across the board, but for our law enforcement officers and our detention officers increase per hour. I've given a couple of charts, and to kind of put things into perspective, this would bring our certified law enforcement positions up to $47,000, a little over $47,000 a year starting. That would be a new law enforcement officer. We're still below that of Forsyth County. They're paying for 0 experience minimum. Starting pay is nearly $51,000 a year. And it's working, because I'll share some data with you in just a few minutes why I use Forsyth County a lot is a benchmark. Hall County minimum starting pay is $44,324. Cherokee County over $43,000. Gainesville $48,000. And these are who we're competing with, board. We're not competing with Lumpkin and Gilmer and Pickens and some of those. This is our competitor. I will say this: if we're able to get our pay up where we're requesting, I feel confident that we're going to draw from these northern counties that we want to be in the same playing field. As far as our detention goes, our detention is well behind. Our starting pay for detention currently is $34,000 a year when compared to Forsyth County at $47,600. Hall County 44.2, Cherokee County 41.2. We're still well behind, and it is, it's showing in our applicants. It's showing in our retention. We used to say when you go down the road 15, 20 miles and make $10,000 more a year. When I originally presented to the board back in July of 19, we had figures that showed that there was a gap of about $9,500 between us and Forsyth County. Now that gap's grown to over $13,000. So the gap continues to widen. And the numbers that we're proposing to your board is not, we've always believed we don't have to match what Forsyth County makes. There's too many good things in Dawson County that attracts quality help. However, we have to get close. We have to get in the same playing field. And I talked just this week, I was down at the sheriff's conference. I talked with a couple of our neighboring sheriffs, and this is kind of where I want to bring it home to. Hall County is a total staff of 483 staff members. Currently, Sheriff Couch is over 70 positions short. He has 46 deputy sheriffs and 18 jail officers, and then he's got some administrative. So that's pretty significant for an agency, even that size. Again, if you total all of our numbers, we're pushing 14 to 15 openings even on ours. But you take into contrast Forsyth County. Forsyth County, which the sheriff told me he was awarded some new positions this year, but currently they have 492 positions agency-wide. He has 14 sworn openings, 8 from, he was recently allocated 8 new openings as of July the 1st. He's filling those. He's got 6 deputy positions. He says that he has 10 already deep into the background process, and he has 40 to 60 early in the application process. And those are the kind of numbers, board, that we need here. We need, again, I'm getting 1 to 2 applications a week, and they're pretty pitiful. So we do feel confident that the numbers work, that the pay works. So I would just ask the board to consider that we move forward with a $3 an hour pay increase.
Questions for Sheriff Johnson? Just a little more detail for you, board. Sheriff and I and Commissioner Gaines met, I guess it was last Wednesday, I believe it was,
Yes.
to discuss it. And I've had some conversations with the sheriff since then. And basically, there's 104 people that work for the sheriff that he's looking to do this $3 per hour. And if you break that down, he's got 5 in supervisor / training, 35 in patrol, 11 in CID, 35 in detention, 7 in SRO, and 11 in sheriff services. I believe that was the numbers that the sheriff and I looked at. Now, he currently is paying the detention officer with the percentage of raise that he gave last year through his own budget, $15.57, and this would take them to $18.57. Certified law enforcement officer somewhere in the neighborhood of $18.65, and this would take them to $21.65. Correct me if I say anything wrong there.
You're correct.
And as he said, that brings the detention officer up to $40,556 and the certified law enforcement officer beginning to $47,283. As you remember, a few months back, we looked at our paramedics and we did a 15% plus a $2 an hour if you rode the med unit, and brought their base pay up to $52,313. I believe the chief sent me an email the other day. So we've made them very competitive, and I think the chief can tell you that that's helped him fill those positions. And so our goal here would be to do the same for the sheriff, give him the opportunity to fill those positions, keep them filled, because we're spending a lot of the money anyway in recruitment, retraining people, re-outfitting people, paying overtime, involved in all the things that would be associated with this. Now, the sheriff didn't include E911 in the request that he has made today, but I would ask you as a board to also consider not only his law enforcement officers and detention officers, but I would ask you to also consider 911, because if you've ever been in public safety, you know 911 is the lifeblood of EMS and the sheriff's office, because without those qualified people sitting in that little bitty room that he's got over there and giving you the directions and the information that you need, then it would just be total chaos for everybody. So I would propose to you that they currently make about $16.34. And I'd propose that when we consider the $3 for the others, that we consider at least $2 an hour for 911 to keep them competitive, because he has some 911 openings as well.
Yes.
And so I would propose that as well as we take a look at this and consider it over the next couple of weeks.
How many are we talking about?
14. He's
How
got
many?
14 people in 911. And so that would be, and you can consider a $3 there if you so desire, but I would at least consider a $2 an hour, which would bring them to $18.31 or 34, something in that neighborhood, which that is a very demanding position. If you've never sit over there or never watched that, you should at least go over there and eyeball that, because that's pretty amazing.
That's right.
My fingers don't work as fast as those ladies and gentlemen do over there. So that's a pretty amazing thing. So I'd ask you to look at that as well. We got some other departments too. Anybody got any questions for the sheriff?
I want to know those pitiful applications do you get? Do you just hire from those just out of desperation that a warm body might be better than none?
I'd like to tell you no, but unfortunately, we have to consider each and every one of them.
See, and I don't think we ought to be lowering the standards to hire anybody.
Well, I know it,
I
me
mean, I don't
either.
think any department where it's
No,
public works, road department, park and rec, finance, we don't need to lower the standards. Especially, public safety too.
Yes, sir.
I think that's when some of these problems you see, I think some of that's standards been lowered, training's been lowered, or no training at all has caused some of these problems. So I don't think we ought to be a place that people can go and get in just because they can't do the job somewhere else.
Yes, sir.
I just want to say thank you for the approach you've taken this time and really sitting down with us and letting us understand some of the concerns and doing it where we can dig deep.
Yes.
And that I'm a numbers guy and that helps me get a better grasp of things. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate the understanding of us as a board. Thank you.
any other questions for the sheriff?
I just want to say, I think one thing that's happening is the atmosphere in general toward law
Yes,
enforcement.
ma'am. That's right.
I don't know where all that, it's just started going wrong. I don't exactly understand it all, but I don't know why anybody would want a career in law enforcement. Now, I shouldn't say that, but
No,
I'm
we all
thinking it.
do.
I
We
don't
all do.
understand.
Right.
Because you really don't know if you're gonna come home
Right.
after that shift. And not that you've done anything wrong, you're just kind of target practice for people. And I think that, I mean, there wasn't any amount of money attract me to that. I mean, I'm too old, but if I were younger, no amount of money would attract me to that in this atmosphere.
He said he's lowered the standards.
Well, I don't know, yeah. Well, I don't know if you need to go that low. You need to be able to stand. But really, it's just got all crazy,
Oh, you're
the
right.
thinking
Right.
about law enforcement. And instead of thinking that they're on our side and they're coming to help, it's all of a sudden you're just polarized and I'm against you
Right.
just because you're a police person, so. But there's a lot of things that needs overcoming, and not just in Dawson County, but on a national level.
Very much so. More so, in my opinion.
Yes, yeah. I
A lot of
mean,
those people who complain about it are the ones with private security walking around with them.
I
Yep.
know, I know, I know, I
I
know.
told the sheriff the other day, we need to start marketing in Seattle and Chicago and try to
Yeah,
get
we
some
get
of
some
those
of those
folks
people.
coming down here.
I will say that Sheriff Couch told me he's got a billboard in 400. I haven't looked for it yet, but so they're branching out too to try to.
I've seen some other companies that have done that, yeah. Put
So we
out
need to get
billboards.
that changed or cut off.
So you think this pay raise will help attract people that are already in law enforcement and we may not even have to go to the expense of training them?
I think it's going to go a long ways toward it. Yes,
Okay.
sir. It puts us in a good competitive field.
Better position.
There's a lot of things that people want to serve in Dawson County, just due to the climate, due to the community support,
Mhm.
that you're not going to get in certain counties, especially metro Atlanta counties. And getting our pay competitive, I think is going to attract some good candidates.
Well,
That's an
I know
excellent point.
Yeah, I'm sure it's just like anything else. If you can get a qualified candidate that has few years of experience, it probably means less headaches for you
Yes,
and
sir.
your guys when they have to, fix things that's happened. So,
Absolutely.
Well, you want somebody to hit the ground running.
Yeah.
If you can
Yeah,
do that,
That's right.
yeah, and that's,
because there's not much
Yeah.
lost time then.
Yes, ma'am.
and that's what that's what I look at when you can get a qualified person that's going to know the difference between doing something the right way and the wrong way. It's going to save, especially in your field, a lot of maybe legal fees and different things like
Yes.
that you don't have to deal with.
Mhm.
And I think anytime we can do that's, a plus. So,
Very
And,
much so.
but another thing, if we raise, then these others may start raising the salary.
Well, it's a never ending thing.
It is.
Just have to be competitive. I mean, we just
Yeah.
have to be competitive. Other questions for the sheriff?
I want you to know, I understand completely what you're saying. And I feel your pain and I just wonder when all these vacancies, I don't really know how you carry on. It has to be
Called
terrible.
overtime.
Yeah.
It
A
is.
lot
But
of it is.
people get tired.
They
You
do.
need to
Yeah.
de-stress from this stuff. You know,
And like I mentioned earlier, the on-call, it wears on folks.
yes, it
And,
does.
It's very demanding.
If you're not rested, you're going to make more mistakes.
That's right.
You need to be mentally ready
Yes, ma'am.
for it. So I get it. I get it.
Okay. Other questions for the sheriff? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not only will we be taking a look at the sheriff, but we'll also, very near future, we're gonna look at public works because we have trouble
Yes.
maintaining public works.
Yes.
And I also want to take, we did firefighter, paramedic. We want to take a look at our firefighter EMT as well. And so we're running some numbers on that now. And we'll have those for you, maybe even in a couple of weeks, so that we can look at all this, maybe collectively together, even all at the same time. All right. Next up, we have presentation of 2021 charity boot drives, Mercy Service Director Danny Thompson. Danny.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Board.
You want to start wearing masks? I noticed that you're all masked up, so.
I'm just doing my part to protect myself.
It's up to you.
It's a conversation for another time and place.
Okay. I
So-
know, I just want you to know I'm watching you.
I know
We'll see
you are.
what you got on.
All right, getting back to business. I'm coming before you. Normally, this is something that we bring before you in January, but along the same lines as COVID, the governor's executive orders were in place. Therefore, we had certain items that we were not participating in at that time. So with that, we have now decided to bring this back before you. It's two of them. Typically, we do the Burn Foundation, the Muscular Dystrophy Association, and also Care for Kids. It's usually, I think in years past, Burn Foundation is usually Memorial Day, MDA's Labor Day, and Care for Kids is that starts on that Black Friday and then the Saturday. So this year we've eliminated the MDA just because obviously the executive orders terminated July 1, and having just those two dates left, kind of trying to stay consistent. We chose the Burn Foundation because if you don't know, whatever we collect from the Burn Foundation, we usually get 10% of that back to be able to buy fire safety education materials, smoke detectors that we're able to give to our residents. And these are things that help offset budgetary costs. Well, since we weren't able to do that in 2020, there's some, we did feel that pinch of not being able to get that $2,000 or $3,000 that we do normally get back from the Burn Foundation. So we won't try to stick with the Burn Foundation. You see the dates before you. Those are the dates that are consistent with what's been done in years past. Those times are also consistent with what's been done in years past. And Care for Kids, again, that begins on that Black Friday.
If you'll read those out for those people that are
Yep.
listening.
So it'd be the Burn Foundation is September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. The times will be from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Your Care for Kids will be November 26th and 27th, 9 a to 11 a and 3 to 5. And I'll answer any questions that you may have.
Questions for
regarding the
Chief
burn,
Thompson.
the boot drives.
Is that, we still doing it Lumpkin Campground and Grizzle? Is that where you typically?
So we have various locations. So
Okay.
Lumpkin Campground Grizzle is one of them. So it's the stations are doing throughout the community. So
Okay.
there'll be some there at the 400 corridor. There'll be some there at Lumpkin Campground and Grizzle. There'll be some there at 453. So they're scattered throughout the area.
Other questions for Chief Thompson? Okay, thank you, sir. Next up, we have presentation of Rural Fire Defense Agreement and Memorandum of Understanding with the Georgia Forestry Commission. Chief Thompson.
I actually brought this to you all in March. They had a new director. Their director's retired. It's the same language. That's why I didn't send it over to the county attorney for review. It was the same language that was approved from the county attorney in March. It's really, they got a new director and they require it to come back before you all. You have the packet
the
That's
new
there.
signatures.
Nothing has changed. It's really a technicality from Georgia Forestry. They've asked me to bring it back before you. I'll answer any questions that you
Signed
may
July
have.
13th.
Really, we signed it literally 4 months ago and I was like, okay, I'll take it back. Glad he retired.
Questions for Chief Thompson in reference to that? All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up, we have presentation of IFB number 384-21 culverts renovation project for Dawson County Public Works Director Denise Farr and Purchasing Manager Melissa Hall.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Mr. Chairman, I'm here to present IFB 384-21 for culvert renovations and replacement.
I got it.
Okay. Project will be funded via SPLOST 6. It includes the replacement or the lining of 7 corrugated metal pipes running under 3 county roads. These roads include Dan Fowler, Barker Road at Shallow Lane, and Lumpkin Campground. The pipes on Dan Fowler include 1 60-inch CMP, an additional 4 CMP pipes that range from 15 inches to 24 inches. There are 2 pipes on Barker Lane and Shadow and Lumpkin Campground. Each one of those are a 24-inch corrugated metal pipe. IFB 384-21 is issued according to Dawson County's procurement policies. It's advertised in the legal organ, posted on the county website, it's posted on the Georgia Procurement Registry, email notifications through vendor registry, notifications through the county's Facebook and Twitter accounts, and through the Chamber of Commerce. We received 2 bids, one from Blunt Construction and one from Townley Construction. Tasks for the project were divided up per road. On Dan Fowler Road, there were 2 tasks. Task 1A included the cleaning and lining of an existing 60-inch corrugated metal pipe. Task 1B included the inspection and recommendation, either lining or replacement for 4 pipes. These pipes are all corrugated metal and range in size from 15 inches to 24 inches. Baker Road at Shatter Lane is task number 2, and it included the replacement of a 24-inch corrugated metal pipe with that of a 36-inch HDPE pipe. We requested that this pipe be replaced rather than lined because the pipe is deteriorating such that it's undermining the road. Task number 3 was associated with Lumpkin Campground Road, and it included the inspection and recommendation that's either lining or replacement again of an existing 24-inch corrugated metal pipe. Scope of work included the all fill material would reach 95% compaction. Those compaction tests would be provided to the Director of Public Works. The contractor would be required to include all shoring, trucking in and out of materials, and traffic control. The contractor will also provide a jointly secured in place pipe upon completion of any pipe extensions. They'll also be responsible for following all related ASTM F-1216 specifications and standards, and that's related to just the lining of the pipe, not the corrugated pipe, just the lining. The contractor will be responsible for implementing and maintaining all erosion control best management practices as outlined by the Green Book. All materials, pavement specifications and control, traffic control will meet the GDOT guidelines and specifications as well as the most current edition of the MUTCD manual. The contractor will also be responsible for all utility relocates and site cleanup. This is a summary of the offers we received, but after reviewing the bid submittals, Public Works recommends that the consideration of only 2 aspects of the bid, that's task 1A, that's the lining of a 60-inch pipe on Dan Fowler, and task 2, the replacement of a 24-inch pipe on Barker Road at Shadow Lane. The lining of the pipes for task 1B and 3 proved to be extremely costly. PW Public Works can replace these pipes in lieu of lining them, and we can use our in-stock pipes and use our crews to do that. So if you look at the offers here, the summary of the offers, if we go down to the bottom and you look at the total cost for all the work from Blunt and Townley, Blunt submitted a bid of $307,663.47. And Townley submitted one for $248,850. But if we only consider task 1A and task 2, Blunt Construction would equal $196,751.50. And Townley would be $109.31.
109,000.
I'm sorry.
109,000.
Yes, 109,000. The staff recommendation, we respectfully request the board to accept the bid submitted for task 1A and task 2, and to reject the bid submitted for task 1B and task 3, and to award a contract to Townley Construction in the amount not to exceed $109,031. And again, Public Works would be responsible for performing the scope of work for task 1B and task 3. Any questions?
Questions for Denise?
Where's the one on Lumpkin Campground that, I know you're not asking for that. I was just
I
curious.
don't have the GPS coordinates, but as you go down, it's before, you know where the, all the fencing is for the, it looks like they have horse farms, but they really don't. But it's a really nice fencing area. It's right there in that area.
South of Dawson Forest?
Yes. No, north of Dawson Forest, going towards Forsyth County. I can get you the GPS if you need them.
I'm just trying to think.
Closer to Forsyth.
It is.
So it's south of the one that we're doing now. We're
Yeah.
doing one now, so can we knock it out while we're doing that one now while we got roads closed? I mean, does that make sense? Okay,
Yes.
right.
So it's just right there north of where they're putting in the roundabout, correct?
We want to be sure we're out of the
Is what?
construction zone and we have
Yeah.
Virgil Earth's permission. And if we do, then yes, we're going to do it at
Yeah.
the same time.
Because
Y'all can go ahead
if
and
it's
do
where
that
that
one.
fence is, that's where I'm
Y'all
thinking.
can
is
That
just
just-
do
new
that one
nice
once for it.
fence on the left right there.
Yeah, like when
Yeah.
you're going towards Forsyth County.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
But if it's not too close and we don't get in the way of Virgil Earth, then we will
yeah.
do that at the same time.
Yeah, cool. Other questions for Denise? Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, you're welcome.
Next up, we have presentation of request for additional funding for legal costs, Chief Financial Officer Vicky Nyker. Vicky.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. The first item I'd like to discuss with you is a request for additional funding for legal expenses. As you know, we are under contract with Gerard and Davis to provide legal services. And there is $252,113 currently budgeted for 2021. Year-to-date expenditures are that same amount. I think we actually have like 17 cents left. Additional funding is needed to pay the remainder of the 2021 legal costs. We are requesting an additional $250,000 to be added to the budget for legal and attorney fees. It's my understanding that the majority of this over budget is because of litigation items that we really have had no control over. It's not the day-to-day normal legal expenses. It's the litigation items that's created this need for additional funding. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try and answer them. May have more specific questions for Ms. Davis, but that's my request.
If I could, Vicky,
ahead.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I sent you an email this afternoon and noted I hate being on the agenda instead of just addressing the agenda. But I did want to point out, as Vicky suggested, that the cap for general services, we have 119,000 plus remaining in that cap. It's the litigation side of things that I guess is not budgeted for because it's unpredictable and not within either party's control. And the great majority of that, sadly, is disputes with the city. SPLOST and then the perimeter road annexation make up the great bulk of that extra in fees and
Would you
costs.
want to say the amount?
I'd be happy to. So under the non-cap services, those are currently $151,720. Of that, if you look at the top non-cap expenses or non-cap matters, that would be the SPLOST litigation that was filed against the county by the city of Dawsonville. And then also the perimeter road annexation, which we tried to work out, but weren't able to do so with the city of Dawsonville. And both of those total, $45,000 for the SPLOST litigation, $29,000 for the perimeter road annexation, which also went to the dispute resolution mediation process, And with that, and then the continuing Dawson Forest litigation, which has been, up and down to the Supreme Court and so forth, those three litigation matters account for $132,000 out of that 151 of the cap. So if you add the 45 and the 30, so roughly, I guess 75 of that is related to city county disputes. I just wanted to note that the budget for cap still appears to be appropriate
Right.
because we're on track for that. It's just these unforeseen litigation matters.
Okay. Other questions for council or Vicky in reference to this item? Okay, thank you, Ms. Vicky. Next up, we have discussion of special purpose local option sales tax 6 overage allocation. And Ms. Vicky's going to do that as well. Paper copies.
Well, I want to talk about a very interesting subject today, SPLOST 6. And we have been very fortunate with our SPLOST 6, and so I'm going to go into a little more detail about that. The voters approved the SPLOST 6 referendum in 2014. And they approved a 72-month or 6-year SPLOST. And it was supposed to run from July 1st of 2015 to June 30th of 2021. The split with the city was 85% to the county, 15% to the city. The first collection that we received in August of 2015 was for $579,906. The last collection that we received in July of 2021, which was for June, was $1,017,978. Yeah, big change. Average monthly collection was $719,000. The estimated revenues for this SPLOST at the time when it was first created was estimated to be $46 million. Actual collections total $51,783,274. Okay, the estimated project cost for SPLOST 6 per the resolution is broken out here by the different activities. IT, $350,000, fire equipment, $1,750,000, the fire station, $1,750,000, emergency services, $750,000, roads, $21,200,000, the public works facility, $2.5 million, public works equipment, $2.2 million, a recycling facility is $100,000, recreation facilities, $4,067,000, and sheriff vehicles and equipment, $3,883,000. The column to the right shows if you took all these and see what their percentage made up, roads had 54.9%. So they had the greatest percentage. And then of course the 15% for the city, which totaled the 46 million. Okay, so for the life of this SPLOST, as I said earlier, the collections were at 51,783,000. We have spent a total of $30.8 million for this total SPLOST for all projects. 7.7 million has been allocated to the city. We currently have 4.9 million encumbered for projects and equipment, which leaves a remainder of $2.8 million. As I said, the actual revenues over the estimate is $5.7 million. Of that, $867,000 went to the city, which would give the county a remainder of $4.9 million. We'll talk a little bit about SPLOST 7. The first year and a half, and this will depend upon the collection, but we're estimating a year and a half, of SPLOST 7 will only be used for the Emergency Operations Center and the communications equipment. The amount allocated for these two projects total $8.5 million. So this overage, I guess you'd call it, in revenue that we've gotten for SPLOST 6 will help bridge that gap. between when we can actually start using SPOS 7. So if we take the, I guess, extra revenues that we've received and we split it out based upon those percentages that I showed you earlier, comes up to the $4.9 million. However, some of these things have already been completed, like the fire station has been completed. The public works facility has been completed. So those funds would need to be kind of reallocated to other projects.
Let me ask you this question. I know we talked about, and I know doing some about the ladder truck with excess funds. Have you added that into this total?
Some of these things are already showing up in the encumbrance.
Okay.
So.
I know we talked about also the fields for Park and Rec. I just want to make sure that out of that,
Okay, on
all
the,
that's been
yeah,
encumbered.
on the next slide, that'll show
Okay.
that. Okay, so the use of the remaining SPOS 6 revenues. The revenue projections and project costs for SPOS 6 were estimates, because you really have no way of knowing what's going to happen with the economy or cost of buying equipment or anything like that. The actual cost of each project may be greater or lesser than estimated. The SPOS 6 projects in the resolution are defined broadly, like roads, streets and bridges, recreation facilities, etc. And the remaining SPOS 6 revenues may be used for these purposes. Alternatively, if each of the SPOS 6 projects are deemed completed, excess SPOS 6 revenues must first be used to reduce county indebtedness, and any remainder must be used to reduce property taxes. They cannot be used to pay off the debt of a local authority. And right now, the only debt that we have is the $268,000 for a fire truck that we bought in 17, I believe it was. So that being said, the SPOS 6 projects are not yet complete. There are still areas of need within most project groups. One of the things that is on the list that was specifically named was $100,000 for the recycling center. So that would still have to come out of what we've already collected. So this is just a kind of a general allocation of the remainder funds. One of the things that I think is probably very important is that we need a new backup system desperately for information technology. That is something that touches every department. I know that they've had some issues here in the last few weeks that they have just spent tons of time trying to recreate information or, retrieve data. So this is something that is definitely a need. In general, vehicles break down, they wear out. New positions are created, people need vehicles. So I put 200,000 in there for vehicles, 150,000 for ambulance or other equipment, 1.5 million for roads, 500,000 for public works equipment. Back in May, you all approved that 1.5 to Park and Rec for those extra projects, 500,000 for patrol, and then the 268,000 to pay off the fire truck debt. That comes up to 4.9 million. So it's pretty close to what we have. I mean, this is just, I guess, a broad swipe at trying to come up with a way to allocate these funds. Of course, it's up to you all how you want to do it, but this just gives you kind of a starting point.
This obviously covers all the things we've already talked about. and
Yes.
approved.
Yes.
Okay.
So in conclusion, staff requests that the board consider how they want to use remaining SPOS 6 revenues so a plan can be implemented. This will allow for a clear understanding of how and where the funds are to be used. So it's always helpful to have a plan. That way if people know, okay, I have these funds, this is where we're going to use them. And there's no guesswork. And then you all also are aware of what's going on.
Exactly.
Is this in order of priority
No,
in your
ma'am.
opinion? No, just, okay,
No.
all right.
Do you have a more broken down specific I mean, these are very broad uses.
They're very broad.
Do we have more details on? No.
Not at this time, we don't.
We can look at that and try to figure out.
Other than, I guess the only thing we know for sure,
Is,
park and rec situation. which
we know the
already-
park and
yeah,
rec,
that
that's
one's
already
done.
been approved, and I
And the
really
fire
do
truck,
feel like
yeah.
we need the
Ladder always
backup,
shows up.
backup for IT.
Okay.
That's been stressed on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and the debt on the fire truck, so.
Okay.
Pay that off. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll just interject one quick thing, and Vicky said this, but just want to make sure everybody understood that we do not have to utilize these amounts that have been received in excess of use the word excess, I didn't mean to. That's a legal term of art. It's not excess yet until we've completed all the projects, but what we received over and above estimated. The extra money, we don't have to use them strictly in accordance with those percentage allocations.
Right.
If we deem something complete. And Vicky noted a couple of projects that are definitely complete. There may be others that you deem complete and wish to allocate.
You just have to stay
differently.
within the same categories.
Right, and we describe the categories so broadly
Yeah.
that, roads, for instance, is just roads, parks, and roads, streets and bridges, I think. So
Mhm.
you can reallocate as you need to once you deem something else has been finished. Just want to make sure that's clear.
I think there's ever anything fully finished.
Well, that's a great point. And that's why we don't have excess funds that are really available to us to proceed under the statute.
Right.
Any other manner.
Other questions for Vicky? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have presentation of hotel motel tax ordinance update. Ms. Davis.
Yes, sir. So this is coming to us through Vicky, who noted that there was a amendment to HB 317, which is involving marketplace innkeepers in the hotel motel tax business. And marketplace innkeepers are what you may think, VRBO, Airbnb, these types of companies and industries that specifically exist for these short-term rentals to be, or even could be general hotel motel, but to allow them to do these rentals. So under, once this HB 317 was passed, we needed to update our own hotel motel ordinance to make sure that we are not missing out on opportunities and that we have the best mechanism and lawful mechanism in taxing these particular hotel motel type uses. So under the amended ordinance, these marketplace innkeepers are primarily responsible for collecting and remitting the taxes to the county. And that's what's provided under state law. But the property owner is still ultimately liable if the marketplace innkeeper fails to pay. So that's provided for in the amendment as well. So it's pretty straightforward. It's shown to you in a red line format, so you can see what we had before and then what the changes are. And again, this is driven by the amendment to House Bill 317. If you have any questions, I'm happy to try to answer them. Otherwise, we'd like to move this forward to the next, not tonight, but the next agenda for voting.
We need to have a public hearing.
We will have a public hearing, yes, since it's an ordinance.
Just one.
We will only need one public hearing. That's correct.
The vote would be to go to a public hearing.
Yes.
I guess broader topic around this, and we've had some recent emails in regards to how we manage VRBOs and stuff. Jamison, it seems like a while back, we had some discussion on that as far as trying to permit that in a manner that, from my recollection, it was almost, we were trying to permit it like an alcohol license where there was like a 3 strike you're out situation. Where did we wind up with that? And I know there was some legislation, the state was working on some legislation. I don't know if they ever did that outside of the scope of the tax purpose, but do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I mean, there are some restrictions to what we can and cannot do when it comes to regulating short-term rentals. And I don't think I've ever been asked to look at Dawson's, but I
This is
just
wild,
actually
yeah.
rewrote one in another county. I'm happy to share that's updated with any of the laws that y'all could take a look at.
We're currently working on, we're looking at several different, obviously this is a hot topic, especially
Yeah.
in
Yes,
North
it
Georgia and
is.
especially around in the mountains and around the lake. We're looking at the surrounding counties and their ordinances and trying to incorporate that into ours. I did have a meeting last Friday with Big Canoe. They're having the same issue. In a way that we can align our ordinance kind of with theirs and try to work with them because, Big Canoe, Chestatee, we're all seeing the same issues and same problems and how to mitigate these. But we are actively looking into it, and we will be reaching out to council as soon as we have a firm direction in which we want to go.
Does that ordinance in this anyway overlay? Is that ordinance, does it have a function in how we collect these taxes? Should they work together? And
Our short-term rental ordinance will essentially be pointing toward, because all short-term rentals are going to have to pay the hotel motel tax. So that ordinance is really more directed at how we're going to accept it, because it's going to be difficult trying to work with the VRBO and the other type of rental agencies and how we interact with them. This ordinance for the short-term rentals is going to be more how we interact with the individual landowner themselves and how we have a capable enforcement of the short-term rentals.
it seems like though we would have, along with the lines of enforcement, part of the responsibility per this is they're paid that tax just like a hotel room does. So can we tie the two together to
We
ensure that
can,
there's uniformity?
Typically, what I would see is a provision that just references that they will be taxed according to blah, 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 and maybe even a reference to our ordinance for hotel motel. I wouldn't try to combine the two, because as
Right.
Jamison mentions, you've got different people involved, and what we'll be working on from the planning context is more like the complaints you're getting from neighbors. It's the noise and, how many people can be in the dwelling and how long, what is a short term? Is it 30 days and under, or, how all those kinds of really use-based issues. But it is common to see a reference that they will be taxed.
Absolutely.
So we can make sure that that's in there, just so there's a cross-reference.
Jameson, how do you know who is doing this short-term rental?
That is an excellent question.
That's what I'm worried about, how this gets done. Because I mean,
Well,
you know,
and that's,
management
yeah,
of it.
go ahead.
I mean, it just something pops up all the time. And I'm telling you, there are people out here suffering that they're in their own homes and this just, and I know nobody's on the dock at Big Canoe. I know that's not a problem in Big, but I mean, people are actually suffering and, you shouldn't be miserable in your own home with all this yelling and screaming with people partying.
We have multiple ways of which we can investigate the situation, and we do the best we can with the staff that we have. But a lot of it does come from neighbors complaining. Obviously, noise complaints. A lot of people, especially when these weekend VRBOs host large parties, we get called out to those. We work hand in hand with the sheriff's office when they get complaints. That's one of the things that we're going to require is a 24-hour contact number to the landowner to make sure that the people that are renting these units are responsible for their renters, essentially, to maintain our county ordinances. So we do the best we can. There's no good answer for you.
It's such a fine line between private property rights and somebody that owns their own property and what they can do with their own property versus the neighbors that live right next door to them and uses, property type uses. That's why we try to keep commercial away from right next door to residential, because they're coming and going, and I mean, it's oil and water almost. So it's a tough line to walk.
Angie, in that one that you worked on, what was considered short-term?
Under 30 days, 30 and under. I think that's pretty standard.
Yes,
So,
it is.
and I think to your question, Commissioner Fawcett, and David was saying this under his breath, it's complaint driven. I mean, it just is. Because we
And there's a
can't
lot of
know-
them coming in,
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
we can't know everything everywhere, but the short-term rental ordinance, the whole purpose of it is you're supposed to register and have a permit to do the short-term rental use. But again, that's having people do the right thing and come in and get the permit. But that's how then we have them noted and then can be enforced. And then a lot of jurisdictions will require like a 24-hour contact number and person available at the property. If there's a complaint, you can call them at 2 a.m. and say, get over there and quiet that place down. So those kind of things really can get into the weeds on how you
Ooh, I know.
manage, but it all is going to emanate either we know about it from a complaint or they do the right thing and they come in once they see the ordinance and they get the permit.
And just to add to her point, I think that's why it's so important to work with the current neighborhoods we have, especially Chestatee and Big Canoe, in which Big Canoe has over 200 or so short-term rentals. Of course, that's across Pickens and Dawson County. So I'm not saying all those are in our county, but nonetheless, it is a growing issue, and it's important to work with those developments and because they help us in the enforcement and notifying us when they will pop up and become available.
So, when I talked to you about this, there were a couple of counties that were test counties about their ordinances. So, and I know you're leaving. But what is going to be our time limit? Because I tell you, these people on the lake and probably, they are suffering.
Oh, we're hoping to have this ordinance before y'all before the end of the year. That's our goal, obviously. We as things change, and things come down the pipe, but we know we're keeping our eye on the updates of surrounding counties for sure.
These people are about at the end of their rope, the patience is hard.
Other questions? For Ms. Davis or Jameson? Thank you. Next up, we have County Manager Report, Dave.
Yeah, good afternoon, Chairman and Commissioners. Our Emergency Services Department hosted the Northwest Georgia Fire Chiefs meeting on July the 27th and showcased the new Fire Station 8. I don't know if Chief Thompson has anything to add to that or not, but I'm sure it was well received. Fire hydrants across the county are being painted. Should you be asked by anybody what we're doing out there, we're painting fire hydrants. So emergency services received 36 smoke detectors donated by the American Red Cross. Anyone wishing to have a smoke detector installed in their home can contact Division Chief Jeff Bailey, and I believe it's first come, first serve. Emergency services also received a donation of $1,385 to purchase an automatic external defibrillator, or AED, from Miss Janice Kimball. I believe that was for the Chesapeake Golf Course. Is that not correct? So well received. The IT department, the sheriff's office and jail wiring for wireless access point upgrades are being done. The sheriff's office and jail wireless access point upgrades has made a huge difference. And the Rock Creek Park and Veterans Memorial Park Pavilion security cameras installed. You may recall we had an incident a while back where a car got broken into. We have cameras out there, but these were basically additional cameras that were added in order to provide larger, control over that.
Did
So,
you say Rock Creek?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. And Matt, if you have any questions, Matt can certainly give you more information on that. The rec center at Rock Creek Park will be closed this weekend from 5 p.m. Friday until 7 a.m. Monday, as new floors are installed in the offices and foyers. And then lastly, the county has been notified that it was approved for the 2021 LMIG Safety Action Program to be used for striping on Dawson Forest, Lumpkin Campground, and Kelly Bridge Roads. The BOC approved this application and the match on April the 1st, 2021. The GDOT's award is a max of $115,000 with the county matching of 30%, which is $34,500 for a total of $149,500. And that is typically, they have a safety program which the county applies for. You may recall Mr. McKee brought that, I believe, to your attention then, and it was approved, and it is a striping program. And that concludes my report.
Questions for the county manager? County attorney report.
I do not have a public report, but would have a need for executive session for personnel and litigation.
Personnel and litigation. Any vote come out of either one of those?
I don't expect so.
All right, before we take a vote to go into that, I have one other thing. Mr. Dave's gonna have a birthday on Sunday, Lord willing, he makes it till then. So as we normally do, it is time to sing happy birthday today. So start us off, Sharon.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dave. Happy birthday to you. man. We practice.
All right, so,
We'll have this down by September. We just don't know what year.
so I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
So move.
Motion by Commissioner Fawcett,
Second.
seconded by Commissioner Dooley. Discussion. Hearing none, please vote. And that is approved 4-0. We'll take about 5 minutes and we'll meet in the back for executive
Oh.
session.
Sit right here.